Good evening, everybody. I'm Bill Buckmaster. Welcome to Arizona Illustrated for Friday evening, February 19th, 2010. Tonight, the Friday Roundtable features newsmaker interviews with U.S. Senators Jon Kyl and John McCain. But first, the Arizona Illustrated News Minute. President Obama today announced that housing finance agencies here in Arizona and 4 other hardest-hit states in the housing crisis will receive $1.5 billion to help spur local solutions to the problem. A potentially life-threatening respiratory virus is hitting hundreds of small children who are flooding Arizona's pediatric hospitals. State School Superintendent Tom Horn has announced his candidacy for Arizona Attorney General, and an original copy of the Declaration of Independence will be on display this Sunday and Monday at the Arizona History Museum at the corner of Park and 2nd Street here in Tucson. We will have our newsmaker interview with Arizona's 2 U.S. Senators Jon Kyl and John McCain after this week's Arizona Budget Watch with Christopher Conover.
The public can now get a day-by-day look at the Arizona budget picture on a new website put up by State Treasurer Dean Martin. At the top of the azcheckbook.com webpage is what looks like a checkbook register featuring the amount of money the state collects and spends each day and the balance in the state's checking account. Martin says he's hoping lawmakers will take a regular look at the balance, which right now is in the red.
Right now we're being told that the only way to solve the budget is to raise taxes. Well, wait a second. Are you sure there's no other places we can go? Exactly what is the situation? And I think transparency is the best disinfectant. I describe this website. We're basically putting everything on the web. It's kind of like standing naked in front of the mirror. You can always find a way to stick to your diet and lose a few pounds when you do that.
It should be noted that Treasurer Martin is running for governor. If you watch the daily balances, you'll notice an increase in the balance around the 20th of the month. That's when tax payments are due. Expenses, however, come every day. Go to our website, azpm.org/politics, for a link to the AZ checkbook page, as well as the latest budget and legislative news. And that's this week's Budget Watch.
And it's time for our Friday Night Roundtable featuring newsmaker interviews with Arizona's 2 United States Senators, John McCain and Jon Kyl. Joining me on the Friday Night Roundtable, Linda Valdez is here from the Arizona Republic and Jim Ninsel from the Tucson Weekly. Senators, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Senator McCain, we will begin with you. It has been 1 year since President Obama signed the federal stimulus program. Was it worth $862 billion?
Actually, when you count interest on the debt, it's over $1 trillion. I don't believe so. I think that we have wasted tens of billions of dollars. I think it was not directed in the areas where we really needed help, and that's small businesses, to provide tax credits, to provide job incentives, and other ways to create jobs in America. Look, we have laid a debt on future generations of Americans now with all of this spending that makes me wonder about what kind of country we're going to hand off to our children.
If we had not done this, though, Senator Kyl, where would we be? You think we'd be better off?
Absolutely, we'd be better off. Most of the jobs created are government jobs. Those are jobs forever that we're going to have to keep paying for. We wouldn't have accumulated another $1.2 trillion in debt. And my guess is that at least some of that $1.2 trillion might have been spent in more targeted ways that actually could have been much more productive, as John said. So when it's a matter of spending $1.2 trillion and getting this little benefit, I think pretty clearly you'd have to conclude we would have been better off not doing it.
As members of Congress, you both have very good health insurance programs. As you know, many Americans don't, and those who do, many of them are finding them increasingly unaffordable. In President Obama's efforts to reform health care, the Republicans have basically been seen as blocking reform. As he tries to revive those efforts, what do you see as your role in trying to provide access to better health care for Americans. Senator McCain, we'll start with you.
Well, Linda, as you know, this has been a year-long battle. Every day, literally every day, and sometimes at night, even occasionally on weekends, and even Christmas Eve, we've been on the floor of the Senate fighting this battle. We've had alternative proposals. I know that the difference between our view and that of the President is that the President believes that the entire healthcare system needs to be overhauled and government needs to play a much bigger role. We believe that we can make changes to bring the cost of healthcare under control. The quality of healthcare in America is the best in the world. So we have had a long set of proposals, starting with malpractice reform to going across state lines to get insurance of your choice, which would then mean more competition between health insurance policy, health insurers, allowing small businesses to join together to negotiate with health insurers, rewards for wellness and fitness, establishing risk pools to address which within insurance companies would compete to provide insurance for those with pre-existing conditions. We have, and a number of other proposals that we think will address the problem with healthcare in America, which we all know is the escalating cost, and not to affect the quality of healthcare. And I want to just go back a second to malpractice reform. Everybody knows that doctors practice defensive medicine for fear of finding themselves in court. That's hundreds of billions of dollars of unnecessary, unwanted, and sometimes painful procedures that people undergo because the doctor has to prescribe that. Now, the fact that we've done nothing on that issue is a living testimonial to the influence of the trial lawyers. And step by step, the President and the Democrats have cut unsavory deals, the Cornhusker kickback, the Louisiana Purchase, the Florida Flim Flam, all of these, the special breaks for the unions.
Would you have any hope now of integrating some of your ideas into...
If we could start over. If we could just sit down now and start over. 2/3 of the American people to 1/3 say stop or start over or both. And that's what I think the American people want. And I'm sorry for the long answer. All my further answers will be much, much shorter.
Senator Kyle?
About 85% of the American people have insurance. They're very happy with it, and they don't want us messing with it. And of course, this proposal by the President would basically undo all of that and reconstruct it through a very government-oriented new type of program that would cost $2.5 trillion, raise taxes, raise insurance premiums, result in the rationing of care. The American people have said no to that. So when you ask about Republicans saying no to it, you're absolutely right. We've listened to our constituents. They've said stop it. We've tried to stop it. We've proposed alternative ideas. The President is going to have us down to the White House to hear our ideas. He already knows what they are. We've proposed them. They've been defeated on party line votes in the House and the Senate. So the question is, will the President conclude that he needs Republicans to help pass health care reform? If he believes he can do it just with Democrats, then no, he won't pay any attention to us. But if he believes that he needs Republicans, then perhaps he'll listen finally to some of the ideas that John talked about.
Senator Kyle, you obviously have concerns about the cost of this proposal. Why did you not have similar concerns with the cost of the Bush administration's expansion of Medicare drug benefits at $1 trillion over 10 years for that program?
Well, A, because it was a whole lot less expensive. B, because it was a private sector program. And it has turned out that the expenses that were projected are much less because the private sector competition reduced costs. And what Senator McCain was talking about with the Republican proposals that we put forward, many of those are designed to create more competition among insurance companies, the sales across state lines, for example, or enable average guys like us to have more competition. When Raytheon wants to get insurance, the insurance companies come to them because they're a huge risk pool there. Well, if small businesses could all combine together and have a risk pool as big as Raytheon, they could buy cheaper insurance as well. So our ideas are designed to create greater competition, drive down the costs that way, because as John said, the biggest problem is cost.
Senator McCain, you were critical of that expansion, the Medicare expansion, during the presidential campaign because of the cost of it.
Occasionally, John, Kyle, and I are not in lockstep. The fact is that exactly what you said. I believe it wasn't paid for. And John and I are in agreement that We Republicans let spending get out of control, but I would also remind you that the Democrats did have control of Congress the last couple of years of the Bush administration. But the fact is, Americans, you're seeing this in the Tea Parties, Americans think we are spending too much, taxing too much, and governing less effectively.
One of the things you've been critical of is the Democratic plan also reduces Medicare benefits by about $500 billion, or spending on Medicare. But when you were running for president, you had spending cuts much deeper than that, of up to $1 trillion. Why the difference?
Well, one of the big differences is that I had ways of eliminating fraud, abuse, and waste, which we should have started already. We shouldn't have waited for legislation, and I had other methods for us reducing those costs, including medical malpractice reform, would have had, I believe, impact of hundreds of billions of dollars. But what I don't think is possible is for us to tell people on Medicare Advantage, and there's 330,000 Arizonans who are under Medicare Advantage program, that we're just basically going to do away with their proposal, their Medicare plan.
And of course, the point of John's idea was to help Medicare get back on its feet financially, not use Medicare savings to fund a new entitlement program. Big difference.
Senator KYL, you know that the Secretary of Transportation was in Tucson yesterday, presenting the city of Tucson with a check for $63 million for this 4-mile modern streetcar project. Do you think the project's a good idea?
I don't know.
Okay. You don't know enough about it?
I do not. I do know this, that $63 million came from somewhere. Money doesn't grow on trees, so we either borrowed it, in which case our kids are going to have to pay it back, or we taxed it. There isn't a government program I know of that returns as much money to Arizona as we send to Washington. So for every dollar that people are glad to get from Washington, they should appreciate the fact that they sent about $1.10 to Washington. Other states do very well in this deal. Arizona does not. That's why I prefer more local programs than sending money to Washington and then being very thankful that we get a portion of our money back.
And Tucson,
you know, 86 cents out of every dollar we send to Washington in the form of the gas taxes comes back to Arizona. Now, thanks to John's effort and others, that's moving up to about 93 cents.
Yeah, 92 or 93.
92 or 93 cents. But I would have much rather have kept that gas tax money in Arizona and then let the mayor and city council and the county supervisors and the governor and the legislature decide how to spend the money. But if the people of Tucson are happy with this, fine. But let's keep in mind that what we've done in this form of spending, because I understand it's out of the stimulus package, we're going to be paying for a long, long time.
no free lunch.
There you go. I should have said that.
Why didn't we think of that?
I was looking at a Rasmussen poll this morning that said 73% of voters think Washington is broken, and 60% of them think neither the Democrats nor the Republicans know how to fix it. So my question to you both is...
Who are the ones that think it works?
No. Do you agree? Is it broken? And if so, what do we do to fix it?
Well, first of all, I do agree that it's broken. I think that, and I am clearly a proud Republican, but I think it is, from objective viewpoint, that the president came to the presidency with 60 votes in the Senate, enough to override Republican objections, and an overwhelming majority in the House of Representatives. So their strategy really wasn't to sit down across the table. I've done that too many times. I recognize it when I see it. And the fact is that they decided that they would try to pick off a Republican or two and call it bipartisan and ram it through. And what I believe is going to happen is that we Republicans are going to pick up a lot of seats in the next election, although we've got a real sales job to do. We have to convince the American people that we provide them with many of the answers and perhaps move government forward. Then maybe we will sit down and have serious negotiations on a broad range of issues. And we still do work together on some issues, troops to Afghanistan, some other issues, but the frustration of the American people is real. We're seeing this in the Tea Parties and other manifestations.
The biggest reason they think government is broken is because it's spending too much money. That's the biggest reason.
They were citing gridlock, and actually one of the things...
Yeah, but they want gridlock in stopping health care reform.
Well, actually, the numbers had gone down on that. They said there were more people now who said they wanted good bills passed than bad bills stopped, and that
sure.
those numbers were changing.
No, people want good bills passed. They also want bad bills stopped. They view the Obama health care bill as a bad bill. Independents oppose it by 2-1. And in the country, it's about 60-40. They tell us, stop it, start over. So sometimes you do need to stop something. If you're listening to your constituents and they're telling you they don't like something, well then, don't just run right over the top of them and say you don't know what's good for you. We're going to pass it anyway. In those situations, you do say stop. But we also then say, now let's get out a clean piece of paper, put it on the table, and start working together and get something done.
Tell you, Linda, the next couple of weeks are going to be fascinating as to whether the Democrats, with our meeting with the president that Republicans and Democrats and the president are going to have, whether they are going to do what we are hearing, and that is try to ram it through with 51 votes. If they do that, I can assure you that bipartisanship for a long time will be dead, because that will be the first time in history a massive reform violated the fundamental rules of the United States Senate.
Senator McCain, J.D. Hayworth launched a campaign against you this week, and one of the things he said was that you stood with the liberals because you opposed waterboarding terrorists. You have told the New York Times that you are opposed to waterboarding. You consider it a form of torture. Is it a liberal value to oppose waterboarding?
Well, I know that torture does not achieve results. If you inflict enough pain on someone, they will tell you anything that they think you want to hear to make that pain stop. We do allow in the Military Commissions Act that I was the author of, along with Senator Graham and Lieberman and others, allow some additional techniques to be used by interrogators that are not torture. For military interrogations, there's a list in the Uniform Code of Military Justice, I believe it is, Army Field Manual of what can be done. There are additional techniques that can be used. We are training a high intelligence group of interrogators that I think will be rather effective. And so we need to get the information that's necessary to secure this nation. We cannot give people their Miranda rights. They should be tried only in military tribunals in Guantanamo. And we have to address the issue of enemy combatants who we can't release, yet we don't have enough to try, information to try. That should be through a special court that reviews their cases on an annual basis. We're working on that legislation. Trying the 9/11 conspirators or actors in New York City was one of the worst ideas I ever heard of.
Senator Kyle, how about you? Do you consider waterboarding to be torture?
I don't know, but I do agree with Senator McCain that the idea of reading Miranda rights to terrorists, when the whole point of fighting the war of terror is to get good intelligence on them so that you can stop them before they strike, is a crazy idea. And you can decide to try them in Article III courts or not. You can make that decision later. But you don't have to read Miranda rights, because as soon as you do that, you've given up the ability to collect intelligence. And that's the key, is collecting intelligence on these guys.
If they're determined to be an enemy combatant, which they can in a very short period of time, you can, for national security reasons, not give them their Miranda rights. And that is just a reality, despite what you might hear from others. And the early period of interrogation is a very important period, a lot longer than 50 minutes.
Why didn't you raise these concerns when the shoe bomber was arrested during the Bush administration?
Because it was right after 9/11, and then we did go to work on the Military Commissions Act, and we passed that in late 2006, so I did go on.
That wasn't stood up at the time.
Was it a mistake to move the shoe bomber through the civilian court?
The problem is there wasn't an alternative at that time. In retrospect, I think it was a mistake. They probably could have held him and then waited for military commissions to be stood up, but did we know they were going to be stood up and that they'd be upheld by the court? We didn't know that at the time.
I'll tell you what was a mistake was the trial of the blind sheikh, where they had to turn over a list of, quote, co-conspirators. One of those was Osama bin Laden. The word got immediately to those, quote, conspirators, and they were all warned. That's what happened in the trial of the blind sheikh.
Vice President Biden, Senator McCain said, I think on the Sunday talk shows, that a major terrorist attack on this country is unlikely. Do you disagree?
I don't know. I'm not on the Intelligence Committee. All I know is what I hear and brief and talk to people, that the threat is still there, that it's morphed into, from what we thought was a stereotype of terrorist, a poor guy in the slums of Cairo, to a very well-educated, sophisticated people who fall prey to the internet and other radical influences. I was astounded to hear the Vice President of the United States to say that the war in Iraq would go down as one of the Obama administration's great achievements. This coming from the guy that said we'd lost, that had to divide Iraq into 3 countries, the president that said that the surge would not only not work, but it would cause more casualties. The only conclusion I can draw, if that's one of their greatest achievements, they don't have any achievements.
Senator Kyle, you're privy to a lot of the intelligence information in this country. Do you disagree with Senator Biden, or Vice President Biden, excuse me?
I don't think anybody knows. I think Al-Qaeda, if it could, would pull off these spectacular kind of attacks. To the extent that we have gotten good intelligence and thwarted those kind of attacks, there may be a trend toward smaller attacks that are easier to pull off. If that's what the Vice President was saying, well, let's hope he's right, but I think it's very difficult to say. But I would also say this, to the extent that's true, it's true for one reason, and that is that we've gotten good intelligence. So don't fight the Patriot Act. Don't fight the FISA ability to collect intelligence. Don't forego interrogation of guys as soon as you collect them by reading their Miranda rights. You've got to get good intelligence. To the extent he's right, it's because we have gotten good intelligence.
Okay, I only have about 5 minutes left. Let's see if we can get Linda and Jim each get a final question. Okay. Go ahead, Linda.
All right. A few years ago, you were both at the forefront of efforts to reform immigration and enact some comprehensive immigration laws. You both paid for that at the far right of your party. It was politically costly. And as we know, nothing happened. Arizona is still suffering disproportionately from illegal immigration. When can Arizona expect to see its senators get back out there and work for immigration reform?
When we get the border secure. In the last several years, there's been a significant change in the situation on the border. The drug cartels are threatening the very existence of the Mexican government. There's violence of unprecedented proportions. Thousands have been killed along the border. That violence has every prospect of spilling over into the United States unless we get our border secure. Also, from a practical standpoint, I still think we need a legal temporary worker program, such as in the agriculture sector and others. The unions don't want that. They're the ones that killed the Bracero program, and they will not support a temporary worker program. I can't support a proposal that doesn't have that. But the biggest problem is the violence on the border, thousands killed in the most brutal fashion, and we have to work with the Mexican government and secure our border.
Senator Kyle?
Why would you cut money in the budget for Border Patrol when you haven't achieved the level on the southern border that everybody agreed was necessary in order to stop illegal immigration? The big change that's occurred is this problem with the drug cartels that have taken over all of the smuggling, from drugs to the human cargo is the way that they look at it. Those people have to be stopped, and you don't stop it with the kind of budget that this administration proposed that cuts Border Patrol personnel. It reduces the number of bed spaces available to incarcerate these people, and it stops building any fence. It seems to me that if we're going to get serious about controlling the border to stop this, you've got to put the resources toward it that Congress would be very willing to spend, I suspect.
Senator Kyle, you were one of the 7 senators, I believe, who voted against increasing funding for airport security in 2007. Why did you vote against that?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh, okay. Well, it was the Airport Security Act. 85 senators voted for it. You were one of 7
I'm
votes
sorry,
against.
I don't know what that particular vote was.
Okay.
I can assure you I had a very good reason at the time.
All right. Senator McCain, your friend Joe the plumber now says that you are not a public servant and you don't deserve re-election. What do you think about Joe the plumber now saying you shouldn't be back in Congress?
I wish him well, and I know that he got a lot of publicity as a result of the debate that that then Senator Biden and I had, and if it caused him any discomfort, I'm sorry about that. I think he's a good man. I thought he represented the challenges that working Americans face, and so I wish him well.
F-35 fighter jets in southern Arizona, good or a bad idea?
Great idea. Foreign training here at Tucson International Airport, huge influx, best training in the world here using the Goldwater ranges. Unfortunately, there are significant delays and cost overruns with the F-35, but it'll be coming here and it'll be a great thing.
Senator?
I agree.
And I can throw one more question in since
Sure.
I'm the host, right?
Absolutely.
What about the hot environmental issue of the area, the proposed Rosemont copper mine? You want to take a stab at that, Senator?
Sure. You know, it'd be a good idea, since we have all these environmental studies that we're supposed to pay attention to allow them to be completed, to let the federal agencies involved make their recommendations, and then decide whether we're going to support it or not. There are a lot of issues that have been raised. I'm very interested to see how those issues get resolved. Water is one of the questions that have come up, and I've been told what the solutions to that are from the folks who want to develop the mine. It would represent a wonderful opportunity for employment in this area and develop a resource which we're blessed with if the issues that have been raised can be resolved. And I just suggest that people take a look at the answers to the questions before taking up a position.
We're working very hard for a mine to be open in Superior. It's 2,000 direct jobs. It's got to do with a land exchange. We're working hard. We hope that the whole delegation will support it. Almost all the delegation does. This state is hurting right now. This state is hurting badly. We need jobs and employment, and we need it for small business, and we need it for our traditional way of helping our economy here, and that's through mining, and I'm confident we can do it in an environmentally sensitive manner to meet all the standards that are required.
I've only got 30 seconds left. Going back to the F-35s, is the noise that much louder than what people are used to here in Tucson?
In fact, it's not much louder, or it's comparable to the latest engine on the F-16. So, but we'll be doing the environmental impact statements. But we should be proud that pilots from all over the world will be training right here in Tucson, Arizona.
Bill, when I was attending the University of Arizona here and the B-47s flew over, that's loud.
That's loud. Senators, thank you very much.
With camel.
Senators, thank you very much for sharing some thoughts with us tonight.
Bill.
Jim, Linda, thank you very much. Email us with your comments by logging onto our website. It's azpublicmedia.org. Then follow the link to the Arizona Illustrated homepage. Coming up Monday night, a conversation with Tucson Weekly. Your colleague, Jim. The writer, Margaret Regan, will be with us. I'm Bill Buckmaster. Thanks for watching this week. Good night. Have a great weekend.